Homer Boyne of the Public Affairs Office. We are doing today a video update with Director Webster. Over the past several months, we've received quite a number of questions from the field, which I will address to the Director today. But before we get into our questions, Mr. Director, I thought that I would give you the opportunity to address a few comments to our field personnel and to all our personnel regarding your perceptions of the FBI since you joined us just about a year ago.
Fine. First thing I'd like to do is to thank all of you in the FBI family for the tremendous support that you've given me during this first year in my office as director. It's been an exciting time, it's been a productive time, it's been a learning time for me. And one of the great things in that experience has been the chance to meet with you and work with you at headquarters, at the FBI Academy, and around the field. It almost seems as there aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things that I would like to do. And we have worked together to try to make the most effective use of this first year. I've learned a great deal, and there's still a great deal more to learn. All of us have to do the kind of job that we want to do and that the American people expect us to do. It's been interesting to me to be out in the field, to visit the field offices, to meet with the SACs, with the street agents, and with the support personnel, and to try to learn the different kinds of problems that confront you in doing the work that's been assigned to you. My job hasn't ended there, as I'm sure you know. I've had to visit, and it's been my pleasure to get to know the members of Congress who are interested in the kinds of legislation that affect the FBI and affect law enforcement generally. I've had an opportunity to study the activities here at Quantico, meet with the leaders of law enforcement, and together work out the kinds of solutions to the challenges that criminal law enforcement and foreign counterintelligence present in 1978 and 1979. It's been a time of getting to know and work closely with the other federal agencies, the CIA, the NSA, and DEA as good examples, and the Security Coordinating Committee. It's been a time of trying to lift the sights of the American people through an open press stance to the high degree of performance that we do in the FBI, to put to bed the archaeology, and to let the American people see what, in fact, is going on in our organization. Because it's a matter of pride for me, and I know it is for you. As I look back on this first year, it's unquestionably clear to me that the role of the FBI is being seen throughout the United States as one of high degree of professionalism, of dedication, and of delivering where delivering is necessary. You can take any area in which we've been assigned work to do and be proud of our accomplishments. Every skyjacking successfully resolved, every act of terrorism successfully brought down, important indictments in the field of white-collar crime, significant movement in the field of public corruption, the indictments on the East Coast in the UNIRAC case, which proved to all of us how effective we can be in terms of teamwork and intensive, dedicated activity. 20 field officers, 100 agents, the use of undercover agents. Just about every modern technique in law enforcement brought to bear. I don't want to overlook the tremendous work of our disaster squad. Two particular cases, the West Coast plane crash and the tragedy at Jonestown. Our people have delivered wherever we've been asked to do so. And I've been tremendously proud of this work. And wherever I go, our citizens are telling me how proud they are of us and that they want us to be effective and they want to support our activities. From time to time, I've had the opportunity to respond to questions about whether or not we're we're being hampered in our activities. And I haven't taken the bait to suggest that the guidelines under which we operate should be abandoned because those guidelines have protected you and me in the conduct of our work. I have, wherever the opportunity presented itself, and perhaps we'll get into some more detail with this later in the discussion, I have pointed out where other types of proposals for activities made no sense, were contrary to effective law enforcement, and served no useful value. And I'll continue to try to strike this balance for you and for me, because I believe that that is the type of professionalism for which the FBI stands, and that's the kind of way we're going to do our job. I particularly want to thank you for all the help that you've given in making the affirmative action program move forward. It's been seen that way by people who've questioned our intentions in the past. And we've gotten high marks from people who have been critical of whether or not the Bureau was willing to be a representative group, whether or not the Bureau would accept its responsibility in the area of providing career path opportunities for our American minorities and females who want to serve in this great organization. We're making great progress, and that progress comes from the kind of work that you've done to make it work. And with that comes an increased measure of overall confidence in the institution of the FBI. And with that comes an increased effectiveness operationally as we become better and better equipped to do our job with a representative group in the special agent category. And I don't want to overlook thanking all of the special support personnel for the many, many tough jobs that go on throughout the country on a daily basis. The support personnel outnumber the special agents, and their work is indispensable to what we do. I want you to know I'm aware of it. I'm not spending all my time on special agent problems. I'm trying to be made aware of any particular kinds of needs in the support personnel area and to make sure that your career opportunities are there and functioning for you. Well, Homer, that's just about enough of that. I'll be glad to take on the questions that we've heard from the field.
Mr. Director, I thought I might ask you about leadership in the FBI. I'm thinking particularly about the quality of our leadership and the selection of leadership, which is a very important aspect of the Bureau. And of course, what I'm really talking about is a subject which is of considerable concern to many people, and that is career development. And I wondered whether you might want to address a few remarks on the career development program. Sure.
Certainly. We try in the career development program to identify those people who have management ability and leadership potential. Through this process, we hope to provide a career avenue for people who are willing to accept the heavier responsibility of managing and leading others. Nothing could be more important to the future of a modern FBI. We want it to be fair and to be seen to be fair. We've put a great deal of effort here at Quantico and at headquarters and in the field to develop a career management program that works for you. Recently, I've modified some of the leadership on the Career Development Board to include a permanent chairman at the assistant director level and to provide a permanent secretary with extensive personnel experience and an awareness of your problems. I hope in this way to be able to make sure that we find those of you who want to go the management route and give you the opportunity to do it. We've got some bugs in the program. We're trying to iron those out. I think there's too much emphasis today in our evaluation systems on aspects other than performance, because too many of our people, they say, are haloed, getting so that if all our leaders and managers, potential managers in the supervisory group receive the same high ratings on performance, it doesn't mean anything. So we're trying to develop a logical way of identifying performance as one of the primary ingredients in selecting people for future advancement. I hope the MAP program is working out for you. If there are bugs in it, I want you to let me know. We want you to feel and to have confidence that the leadership in this organization is being selected from within and on the basis of ability and dedication and merit.
Last year, the Civil Service Reform Act was passed, and while we were exempt from the major portion of it, there is one part that applies to the FBI, and it applies to grade 13, 14, and 15 managerial positions or supervisors. And the part that applies to those individuals is for merit increases, and we are going to have to apparently develop a system for appraising the performance in those particular grades. And could you comment on the impact of that?
Yes, I can, as much as we know at the present time. This fits in with what we were talking about earlier. We're going to abolish the steps within each pay grade, as they've previously been known, which were relatively automatic in terms of time if work was done in an effective way and you received the proper grades. The emphasis is going to be on performance for increases within grades. And so it's important for us to develop a meaningful method of measuring performance so that those who have that responsibility, by answering a series of questions, can give us a proper index on performance rather than to use the traditional outstanding, excellent, satisfactory, and so on. We haven't finished that. We're not under civil service, but we do track civil service in these requirements, and we will be working on an effective approach. And I intend to be able to use that as a vehicle in our career development program. So it'll not only be consonant with the new law, but it will be effective in terms of giving our ablest people a chance to have their performance measured in their compensation.
I think everybody knows, Judge Webster, that our highest priorities are organized crime, white-collar crime, and foreign counterintelligence. And I wondered if you'd like to comment on the proposals for this year's budget in regard to increases or changes in the amounts that we've requested in those particular programs.
I think it might be interesting to show the shift that we've achieved in the last 5 years in moving from traditional areas of Bureau work into the areas that we now know to be our highest priority programs: organized crime, white-collar crime, and foreign counterintelligence. I've asked that some graphs be produced so that you can follow that change. You'll notice in the two pie graphs that in fiscal year 1974, we had 7,800 agents. For the fiscal year ending 1979, we have increased responsibilities with 7,100 special agents in the field. We've moved from 8% of our field activity in organized crime to 18%, a 10% increase overall, and practically tripled our commitment in that area. We have gone from 12% in white-collar crime to 19%, and from 13% in FCI work to 18%. These activities are measured on our RMIS system. And of course, you're very much involved in providing us the data to show on an online basis our success in moving into these important areas. The RMIS system not only shows the application of resources, but shows the results of work in this area. The number of felony convictions, misdemeanor convictions, actual recoveries, projected recoveries where we abort the crime. Very effective tools for demonstrating in a sophisticated area to the Congress and others who want to know how we're doing our business that we are, in fact, moving into this area. That's important. We don't have the old automobile case figures and the old fugitive cases anymore to show our performance. I'm just as pleased to have this type of data available to demonstrate how effective we are in the high-impact areas. We're also watching, and don't, for those of you in the reactive crimes, don't feel that this emphasis on priority crimes in any way denigrates the importance of the work that we're doing in the reactive crime area. It simply means that we have less and less resources in those areas, and we have to be more and more effective with the reduced resources that we have.
Another question. In January 1978, the new retirement bill went into effect for our special agent personnel. And I know some people have voiced some concern to you, particularly some United States attorneys, regarding the loss of expertise and experience because of the number of agents that have to retire at 55. And Judge, do you think that this does have an adverse impact on the Bureau, or how are we able to continue, and are we able to continue effectively with the implementation of this new act?
Well, that's a question that has to be answered yes and no. Of course we lose something when people with years and years of important experience elect to leave or required to leave by the law. On the other side of the coin is the fact that law enforcement is a rigorous occupation. The accelerated pension provisions take note of that and provide for early vesting in our pensions. The thing that concerns me most, frankly, is that I think under conventional wisdom we have a number of people who are electing to retire at 50 rather than at 55 because they have decided that they want to take another career and perhaps they'd better start it at 50. I can't quarrel with that assessment, although it's been my observation that those who have served out their term to age 55 are having no difficulty in finding important occupations if they want to continue in this or some other field. We're looking at this, we're watching it very closely. The other side of the coin, of course, again, is that in order to provide avenues of opportunity for the younger people coming on, those spaces have to be made available. It's a balancing process, and so far we've struck the balance in favor of mandatory retirement. I've done so because I am confident of the talent that we have in this organization and confident of the training that we give you initially and in in-service training and in the field. Given that training, we can offset the lack of experience, the loss of experience, when some of our most experienced men go out. But it's important for all of you who are looking to go up the line to accept the responsibility for replacing that experience with ability and continued education and updating of your capabilities.
I have a question that I know all special agents will be vitally interested in your answer, and that concerns remuneration or pay, and particularly the AUO, or sometimes referred to as voluntary overtime. And what is the status of that, Judge?
Right. This is a question that's frequently asked of me when I'm out visiting field offices, and I understand your concern about it. And I'm not evading the question. I can't give you a very clear answer at the present time. AUO is in the process of review in the Department of Justice. The Bureau had its opportunity to have its input, and I have furnished a very strong memorandum of all the reasons why it is not only important but crucial that AUO be continued at all levels of the Bureau in law enforcement, including those who pass through the headquarters experience as supervisors. The Department knows the reasons, and I have been assured that no adverse action or recommendation on the part of the Department will take place without my having another opportunity to present the case in the event that they weren't persuaded the first time around. You know we're in an inflationary economy. You know that major cuts at all levels are being made across the board in government. We're taking our share because that's part of our responsibility. I do not believe that a modification of the AUO program is cost effective. It's a little hard for people who work long hours in Washington to understand why across the street some people are getting AUO for doing the same, putting in the same hours and doing the same kind of relatively risk-free work at that particular stage in their career. And so we're doing continuing our efforts to make them understand how important this is to a career path which involves service in Washington, as distinguished from the department where people come here to work and very rarely go out in the field. There's no time to panic, but I'm not going to make any promises until I know what the situation is. You have my full commitment to go down to the wire on this issue.
I have another question concerning money only coming from a different direction, and which is of concern to special agents, and that is, what is the status of the Federal Tort Claims Act?
I think most of you followed the course of that legislation last year. It didn't get through, as you know, and the final crunch of Congress, when so many bills were being dumped in for final action, it was determined that it would be much better not to try to force it through, and with one of the chairman of one of the committees refusing to release his side of the bill and put it out into the Senate for debate, we decided to start over again. It gave us an opportunity to go to work on the American Bar Association to try to get some support there, which we didn't have in the last go-round. I made a trip to Chicago and appeared before the Board of Governors along with the Deputy Attorney General, and there were follow-up trips in which Park Stearns from the FBI and officials from the Justice Department appeared before the Criminal Justice Section of the American Bar Association. They now support the concept of an exclusive remedy against the United States. It's hard to tell what form this bill will finally take. We're nearing completion. It will go up. I have pretty good confidence that we're going to get a satisfactory bill. I've been working to protect the former agents, those who are somehow involved in one of these claims after they leave the service. And at the present time, the draft in its present form will give former agents as much as active agents. But we all know that this is just the beginning of the legislative process. I'm going to be speaking about that on other occasions before other groups and try to enlist public support for what I think to be not only fair but necessary for effective, aggressive law enforcement.
Another area that comes up, and it's an area that I know you consider to be very important, and you listed it as one of your priorities, and because it is so very, very important, and that's in the area of minority recruitment. But the question that has been brought up several times is, do we have a quota for the recruitment of women and minorities in our new agents classes?
No, we don't. Now, let me try to explain that in a way that will make some sense. We establish priorities for skills in developing our pool of eligible applicants. And the priorities at the present time are accountants, lawyers, persons with language skills, and persons with degrees in science that we need, and then persons with college degrees in the modified program of 3 years executive experience. And as you know, support personnel experience qualifies for executive training or executive experience. In addition to that, I have assessed as a priority the development of minorities and females. When we want to select a class at Quantico, we go on the basis of these priorities. The qualifications for eligibility are the same across the board, and there has been no reduction in our standards for eligibility. When it comes to selecting from within those groups, we assess our needs in order to develop our priority programs to get more accountants on board for white-collar crime, and so on. And as I told you earlier, we don't go below our standards. We don't pass over anybody within a particular group. If we've decided that we need to draw on females, within that category, no female applicant is passed over to someone with a lower score. Same is true of an accountant, whether he's a member of a minority group or not. He's assessed both as a member of a minority, separately from his grade scores as an accountant. And we take them from the top in each of those categories. I think it's fair. A lot of work's been put into it. It's not my handiwork. I review it. It's a way of getting the best qualified in the categories that we need. And I think it's functioning. But we have no quotas. And the last several classes have not operated on a consistent pattern. It's on the basis of what is perceived to be needed at that particular time to augment what we have in the field.
Mr. Director, I have another question along the lines of applicant recruitment, special agent recruitment, and that concerns the large number of support personnel which we have who are very interested in becoming special agents. And why is it that we do not have a specific or a special selection program for those support personnel for them to become special agents?
Support personnel actually do have some benefit, as I mentioned. Those in support personnel who want to be special agents get credit for their time in the Bureau as executive training, no matter what kind of work they're engaged in. That puts them in a position, if they have a college degree, to be considered subject to our priorities. The modified program is not the top priority because we need accountants and we need lawyers and we need people with special science degrees. If they have those, then of course that puts them in the higher priority group. We do encourage our support personnel to achieve a career as special agent if that's the wish of their wish to do so. I shortened the period of time for retaking of tests from a year to 6 months, and we're willing to try to find ways to help our own people evaluate their test performance and encourage them to go back and do a better job on the next go-round. That's the most that we can do because the important thing for this Bureau is to bring into its ranks the most qualified people that we can find with the skills and the characteristics that we need at any given time.
I have a question which probably is quite pertinent to those special agents who are in some of our larger cities, where sometimes it's difficult in the living conditions. While the work is fine, the living conditions are difficult, and that is officer preference or transfer policies. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, we start with why do we transfer people? We transfer people to places where they're needed. It costs us over $5,000 on average to move a special agent from one field office to another field office. So these transfers, and there are a lot of them made each year, have to be considered in terms of need and cost, and I suppose that the real question is when we are moving people around, what attention do we give to the wishes of the special agents to end up in a particular place? I do support the office of preference concept. I think that if we have our druthers, we ought to send agents where they can go, provided they have enough seniority to offset the other people who want to go to the same place. There are some field offices, as all of us know, that are far more popular than others. We do it on a seniority basis. We do intend to honor the special provisions for New York City and San Juan. You might be interested in the numbers of transfers that are made each year to fill vacancies and to deal with the reprogramming. You can see, of course, that 1978 involved a significant increase in the total number of transfers, primarily, I think, because of the 800 special agents who were required to retire on February 1st of last year. But you'll also see that across the board, the numbers of office of preference transfers are significantly less than the total number of transfers. For those who think that people in one type of field office get a better shot at office of preference transfers than in others, you might want to have a look at that figure. We try to do this in a fair way, and if any of you have any better ideas about how we can assure fairness, I'd welcome your suggestions.
I have a question which I knew would have to come up somewhere along the line during our questioning here, and that deals with the Freedom of Information Act. And the question is specifically directed toward the impact of the Act on our investigation. And again, let me narrow it a little further. The impact on our investigations regard to informants and the perception that informants have in regard to the Act and that their identities might be disclosed. Do you think this is a major problem for the FBI, and what can be done about it?
Yes, I do think it's a major problem for the FBI, and I've been saying so around the country. There's a joint task force now at work in the Department of Justice in which we're participating, which we're trying to come up with some practical and meaningful solutions to this problem. You may know that I've suggested that the Congress provide a moratorium on closed criminal files for a period of 10 years. I wanted it to develop some kind of rational dialogue to make people aware that this problem does exist. We went out to you last year and we asked you to help us develop a brief on this case, to identify with solid data instances in which informants ceased to cooperate, drew back, and instances in which information was compromised because of the Freedom of Information Act. I want to congratulate you on the quality and volume of the material that you furnished. As a result of this, the Government Accounting Office completed its study and reported it in full. I didn't agree with its conclusions because it said while we're having a lot of trouble, we hadn't demonstrated that we didn't do our job as well. I think that's a leap of faith, frankly, that no one really believes. Everyone understands that if you impair somebody's effectiveness in this way, the job is going to be that much tougher. Nothing could be more important to our overall investigative capabilities than a solid, developing informant program. Again and again, we've requested you to put out your best efforts to increase the numbers of informants in our legitimate investigations. I know it's hard for some of you who are learning this technique to do it with your full enthusiasm when the question of how much confidentiality can you promise is at stake. We're doing a lot of work inside the Freedom of Information Act section to try to make, to minimize the risk of disclosure. We're showing people the vulnerability of this program. I expect we're going to have some legislation. We have to have some legislation. In the meantime, keep trying. We haven't lost an informant yet that we know of. I know your perceptual problems in the field. I know how informants feel about the Freedom of Information Act. It's shared not only by informants but by federal judges who don't like to supply information anymore because they think that the information will be somehow released to the people that the subject of the name checks. It's a problem. We're working on it, but don't stop developing your informants in the meantime. Our program has shrunk. It's shrunk below acceptable limits, and you've got to keep supporting us as you have in the past.
Judge, what is the status of the charter?
We've been working all summer and fall on the development of an affirmative kind of charter that will tell us what's expected of us. Thus far, the FBI has had a very significant role in the evolution of the draft. Inspector John Hodis has worked out of my office and dealing with the Department of Justice. I have stayed close to the charter. A great many of us have put many hours in on it. The Executive Conference has had an opportunity to explore its ramifications. We've sought and will continue to seek comments from SACs and other executives in the field. I'm optimistic. There will be a number of people who will try to use the chartering process as a way of hamstringing the Bureau and limiting its effectiveness. But the climate is so much better this year than it was last year, partly because of the high degree of performance by the Bureau and partly because of the increased threats, both in terms of criminal law enforcement and the problems of terrorism, that I believe we'll get a fair hearing in the Congress. Nothing is more important to me in this year's projects than a good charter for the FBI.
Last fall, you established an advisory committee on women agents, and I wondered if you could tell us the purpose or the objective in establishing that committee.
There's been a lot of static and a lot of fun over that. One of the female special agents who was asked to serve on the committee told me about being transferred to another sitting, and at her transfer party, she was given a T-shirt that said COW for Committee on Women. Let me tell you why I formed that committee. I suppose all of us are aware of the administrative actions, the class actions, that started 2 years ago, claiming unequal treatment for women. Most of those grievances, in my view, have been corrected, if they were in fact grievances. But I still had the lingering concern that we had no one back here at headquarters who had a real awareness of what special problems, if any, female special agents may be encountering in developing a career path in the Bureau. We've had years of exposure to problems with minority groups and other special considerations, but no one that I felt was really would be here and would have the ear of female special agents who would be apt to call in. No den mothers around the executive conference that I could see. So rather than put the heat on one female special agent or two, I thought an advisory committee might be helpful because they could then assess feedback from the field and give me any special information that I thought I ought to know, or that they thought I ought to know, about how we were dealing with the new experience of an increasing number of female special agents. It might interest you to know that the committee functioned very well, made some good suggestions, such as pre-testing of some motor and physical capabilities before going through the training process, as an example. One of the things that they impressed upon me was that they did not want any special favors, and they wanted no reduction in the standards. It's an advisory group. They understand their role as advisory. I think it is a healthy thing to have around, and I'm very appreciative of the committee members who are willing to serve, and I hope that in the years ahead that we'll benefit from the input that we receive.
As a result of budgetary restrictions in the last several years, and which we continue to face, we've had a reduction in the manpower and resources available. As a result of this, do you feel that there will be any need to limit or close field offices or resident agencies or consolidate some of them?
That's a natural sequence for limited resources. We've closed about 50 offices in the past few years. We're looking at others. In some cases, this will present some hardships. In others, it really won't. Rapid communications, good highway systems, utilizing techniques in places where we've had resident agents living between their offices and another larger resident agency, have made it possible for our agents to live in the same place without having to move and to still function out of another office and reduce the amounts of overhead expense that we have to deal with. None of us like to see a federal presence disappear in sparsely populated areas, such as the Indian Territory, for example, and we watch that very closely. Each time we consider things on the basis of cost effectiveness, we also consider the impact that it will have on the particular community. If you have your druthers, you'd grow and not shrink. But when we have to shrink because the resources are not there, we have to do it in the most effective way.
Will we have a physical fitness program anytime in the future?
We're working on this. I've had some very interesting studies made. I'd like to see a return to a regular FBI physical fitness program, time in which to engage in activities which increase physical fitness. Good arguments can be made, and I substantially accept them, that people in good physical condition lose less time for sick leave and so on, and we can justify the several $1 million additional projected cost for such a program. Frankly, right now it's a fiscal question. If I can be satisfied by the proponents of this program that we can absorb the cost, we're going to have it, but I'll keep you posted.
Judge, from time to time, the question always arises in regard to our relationships with the department and in the field with the United States attorneys. Would you care to comment, after being director for a year, as to how you perceive our relationship with the Department of Justice and the United States attorneys is proceeding?
All right. Of course, I suppose it's no secret that I'm a former United States attorney, although that was a long time ago, 1960, 1961. In a way, that helped because I understand some of the concerns and turf problems that exist between the SACs and the United States attorneys from time to time. United States attorneys have an advisory committee that meets several times a year and offers suggestions to the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General. Just a few weeks ago, we had them over to the Bureau for about 3 hours of extensive, frank discussions in which several problems, when I talk about problems, I don't mean necessarily rubs, but efforts for us all to be more effective in our common objective were discussed and explored. Things like press relations come up from time to time, utilization of resources. We have to face the fact, and all of us do, that as we go into white-collar crime and organized crime, we're no longer in a position of being able to wrap up an investigation in a pink ribbon and bring it into the United States Attorney to accept or reject. We have to go into an extended period of investigation. The ultimate our final end of that is going to involve a long grand jury investigation in which the United States Attorney is involved. All of us agree that the United States Attorney's Office should be brought into these cases at the earliest opportunity and in a true partnership relationship, a strategy developed for a successful investigation. The unsuccessful investigations do none of us any good. So we are working with them and working well. It's a good teamwork operation. We'll learn more as we go along. We've had joint white-collar crime programs around the country. I spoke at one in Los Angeles last fall with special agents and with assistant United States attorneys. It's been a good exchange. I've gotten first-rate support from the Attorney General on all of our special needs. I can't tell you in this program, but I can assure you that he has supported our efforts before the Congress. He's gone to the President recently with some special needs on my account and was successful. The Deputy Attorney General has the same cooperative approach. And I might just read you a letter that I got the other day that will tell you. It's a brief memorandum from the Deputy Attorney General with respect to the successful operation that was completed in Wilmington, North Carolina, This could have been a very tough problem, incidentally. First time that a uranium substance, even though a low-grade uranium substance, had actually been used in connection with an extortion threat. Congressmen and senators were going to be the recipients, according to the extortion note, of uranium vials. That case was beautifully brought down in about 3 days of intensive investigation, which involved the use of our forensic facilities, handwriting experts. We even employed our new technique in psycholinguistics. But I'd just like to read this little letter because I think it reflects the new spirit, if it is new, certainly the present spirit of our relationship. It's from the Deputy Attorney General, Benjamin Civiletti. This will serve to formally confirm the Department's tribute to you and the men and women of the FBI and to the individual agents and supervisors responsible for the arrest of suspect David L. Dale and the recovery of 150 pounds of uranium in the Wilmington extortion case. This work confirms to all Americans the diligence and effectiveness of the FBI and its immediate response capacity to this dramatic terrorist extortionist setting. The Bureau's superb efforts continue to be a source of great pride and respect throughout the Department of Justice. I think that letter pretty much reflects the type of cooperation and support that we can expect with the Department of Justice, of which we are a part.
Judge, let me ask you one last question, and again it concerns support, and in the support of the American people. As you are aware, and all our employees are aware, for many, many years we had an outstanding image. And because of that outstanding image, we were able to perform our function with the tremendous support of the American people and do it extremely capably. In the last couple of years, we've gone through a bit of turmoil, and some of that image has been tarnished to some degree. How do you perceive what our image is today, and what do you think it'll be in the future?
All right, I'll give you my own assessment. Of course, all we want is to have our image match our performance. And I base my optimism on a number of things. Leaders in our country that I've talked to around the country. My actual visits out in all of the major areas of our country in the past year, talking to citizens who rely on us for our work. And also what I can read and you can read in the press and here in the media. Our Public Affairs Office collects the things that are written about our work, the editorials, the comments, the articles, and we regularly send out to you a full report on a weekly basis of what's being collected around the country. Some of you see it, some of you may not. You might be interested that one SAC on the West Coast called in to find out why we were holding back the unfavorable information within the last couple of months. And Homer had to tell him we were putting it all in, favorable and unfavorable. It's just that the unfavorable has shrunk to proper proportions. I think we're being seen for what we are and for what we do. The archaeology is now largely on the back pages. You can expect a little heat from time to time as the Freedom of Information Act surfaces things that may or may not have been published in the past. But essentially, I see on the front pages of our papers recognition day after day of the important investigative work that we're doing. And I'm personally confident that we are well on the way to a restoration of public confidence to the extent that we lost ground, and we did lose ground. It's largely been restored. Your continued performance, vigilant and aggressive performance of duty in the way that we're supposed to conduct ourselves is the best and only enduring method of maintaining that degree of public confidence. And we're going in the right direction.
Judge, I've enjoyed asking these questions with you, and I know all our employees undoubtedly will appreciate your candid and forthright and knowledgeable responses, and particularly the time that you've taken to give your views on what is now considered to be somewhat of a unique medium to get the message out to our employees.
Well, thank you, Homer. I hope this has been useful to you. It's certainly something I've enjoyed doing. Appreciate all the questions that were sent in, and I hope we've answered most of them. We've certainly tried to. Don't let this be the end of it. If there are more questions, more things you want to know, more ways that you can suggest how we can do our work better, keep on communicating with us. Just in closing, I was thinking as I was looking out at these cameras that a year ago I knew virtually none of you. And looking at the camera, I can imagine the thousands of new friends and associates that I've gotten to know in my visits across the United States and at headquarters and at Quantico. Together, let's keep up the good work. Thank you very much.